Good evening. I want to thank you all for coming to this month's series on Blacks in America. This is in collaboration with the Beloit Public Library. My name is Teresa Craig, and I'm excited to present Linda Fair this evening as your facilitator. We will be exploring Beloit's Black history and some of the first many of the firsts here in Beloit. And for those of you, if this is your first time joining us, we began a monthly series back in April, and we're just doing different topics of exploration regarding the contributions of Black Americans from a narrative that is not about enslavement, so about the contributions to our country. So I'm really excited that we get to explore our hometown of Beloit, and at this point, with no further ado, I will turn it over to Linda Fair.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you all for being here tonight. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Maya Angelou. Today I will be talking to you about Beloit's Black history, some of the best kept secrets in this state. Today's presentation will feature subtopics on the beginning, the Great Migration, education, faith in the Black church, employment opportunities, health care, and Beloit Black history first. The beginning. In the beginning, there was Mr. and Mrs. Emanuel Craig. They were the earliest Blacks to settle in Beloit in 1839. He was a coachman who lived to be 115 years old. In 1855, there were 2,753 people in Beloit and only 18 Blacks. In 1860, there were 4,098 people with only 27 Blacks. 1910, the number increased to 15,000 people and only 60 Blacks. Then we get to 1920, where the population became 21,284 with 834 Blacks. Now fast forward to 2019, the city is populated with 15% African Americans. Besides the Craigs, there were other people too. Joseph Bowling, he came in 1846 from Raleigh, North Carolina, and he was the first bootmaker, and also the Gillian Perry family. The Craigs were among those who witnessed the formation of the township government in 1842 and the founding of Beloit College in 1846, 2 years even before Wisconsin's statehood. Then there was the Waffle family, William and his mother and brother. They settled in Beloit in the 1850s and was one of the town's first blacksmiths. Then came the Struthers family, and along with the Bond family. Each of these people came seeking greater change, greater prosper for their family. Then we get to the good part. One of the better parts, I like to say. Beloit, 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 said the train conductor as he carried loads of people from the south to the north to work at Fairbanks Morse. He called out again, Beloit, Beloit, Beloit. No one moved. Then he said, Fairbanks, and the whole train emptied. They didn't know where they were going except to Fairbanks. They knew they were coming north. They knew they were coming to Fairbanks. They had no idea what the name of the city was, but they knew that they were going to Fairbanks. So they unloaded the train, and that's when the Great Migration began. There was a labor shortage Fairbanks was facing, but the work was still there and great in need. World War I had just started, and most of the white laborers had joined the army to go work, to go fight in the World War I. So that became a labor shortage. Then when John McCord, one of the janitors that worked at Fairbanks cleaning the main office and some of the bigger offices, told them, I know how to get some good men. I can get you a few good men. And he said, well, what do you mean? What are you talking about? He said, I came from the South. 1918, John McCord 1914, I'm sorry, he came to Beloit, and this is now 1918, and he said, I know where to find a few good men. I know where to get a few good men. They said, well, we're going to send you down south to bring us back 18 men. Bring us 18 men who are churchmen, hardworking, and looking for change. He said, no problem, I can do that. So he went down in search of a few good men. He made 4 recruiting trips. After the first trip, another gentleman by the name of Walter Ingram, who played semi-pro baseball and knew the ins and outs of the South, he said, I'll go with you. It was a treacherous trip sometimes because they were faced with those labor laws where a lot of the whites in the South didn't want you recruiting and bringing people from the South up here for a chance of hope and prosperity. So after about 4 trips, they stopped, but by this time they had well enough laborers and people were bringing back their families. He was a well-liked janitor, and from that moment on, Fairbanks really entrusted their faith in him. By this time, Beloit had over 2,000 blacks. It was a dangerous venture. One day on a trip coming back, they stopped in Memphis, Tennessee, and they witnessed a lynching. And that was like the end of those trips. They were too frazzled to want to go back and pursue just for their safety. And by this time, their families were saying, it's not worth it for you to bring others. We need you here as well. After they got all the people up here, they're like, what are we going to do with them? Where are they going to stay? We promised them this. We promised them, housing. We promised them employment. And that's when they created what's called the Fairbanks Flats. Fairbanks Flats is still in existence even. It was built to house the workers over on the west side of town, just offshore Drive. They have all these people here, and they're like, who's going to manage them? What are we going to do? So they felt, we have a group of African Americans here. They're in a strange land. We don't want them to turn to other things that might distract them. They brought in another black man from South Carolina, J.D. Stevenson, and he was like their superintendent of the Edgewater Flats and the Edgewater YMCA. His job was to find recreational activities for them and kind of like a chaperone, keep his eye on them, provide opportunities for them, and just, as they say, manage them. Can you manage this population? They're doing work for us. We're appreciating that, but we want to make sure they're managed. So in comes J.D. Stevenson from South Carolina. The Great Migration hit a lot of the cities in the north, from Chicago to Milwaukee. A lot of families stopped just short of Wisconsin in Chicago. Some went over to Milwaukee area, but Beloit was situated in an ideal location on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin, so they could still get reach of their family members that might be in Chicago. The Great Migration in Beloit has been mentioned plenty of times on national websites, TV shows, and even in the latest publication, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, an author who I'm pleased to say I've met personally, and in her book, there's a story about my maternal grandmother, Callie Williams, so that touches my heart too. So as you can see, this really plays an important role in my life and why I'm here and how I got here, besides the fact that my grandfather came north from Mississippi as well to work at the Ironworks foundry. Once we started populating this area and community, we're working hard, we're helping people out, there became a shortage of housing inequalities. Blacks were not allowed to purchase homes in certain areas of the city. Again, they were trying to corral us in just one area of the city. There was the tracks down by what's called Turtle Creek, Short Street, Keep Street, and then there were the flats over on the west side of town with Shore Drive, that neighborhood. Realtors and financial institutions would not rent, sell, or finance property to blacks unless there were already blacks living in that area. There was even ads that promoted Caucasian only. I remember seeing an ad as I was researching, talking about house for sale in the Todd School District, and it said Caucasian only. 2 places would give loans to African Americans in Beloit, the Beloit State Bank and the Beloit Building and Loan Association. And do you know that black females, whether married or not, income was not included in their husband's housing application? Even if she was the breadwinner making more than her husband, they didn't count her income at all. But yet, a white female, they would count 50% of her income towards their income to help purchase a home. So in some of the clauses, you would see on the deeds, Caucasians or whites only, or only 2 black families per 6-block radius, things of that nature. And this is all real talk, people. Some things that are definitely for certain with African Americans and has been, in our pipeline, a couple things you can bet on for sure. Education, the black church, and a strong faith. And education, we feel, was the root to success. Even if our foreparents, our grandparents, if they didn't even have the education, they knew to let us know and let people to know that you need an education, some form of fashion. Please make sure you get your education. More than 130 years ago, siblings Grace and Lawrence Housley grew up at 731 Church Street. 30 years even before the migration, the only black household located near Beloit College. Grace Housley was the first black to graduate from Beloit High School. Notice this was before it even became Beloit Memorial High School. It was called Beloit High School. She was also the first black female to graduate from Beloit College in 1904. Along with Grace was her brother Lawrence, who attended Beloit College as well for 3 years. He was in a program called the Beloit Academy. The Beloit Academy was part of Beloit College, and what it consisted of was almost like a pre-college program. This is where they kind of watched you, monitored you to kind of help you become successful and complete your schooling. He went 3 years and was just 1 year shy of graduating when duty called for him to work. Because at that time he had to help his mom, had to help his siblings, but he encouraged Grace to go forward and complete her education and supported her. But that's what we did. And if anything can be brought out of these Housley family, one thing he did for sure, upon dying, he donated $10,000 to be given to someone to help people of color attend Beloit College. He believed in reaching back, giving back, and that's exactly what we're trying to do and mention to our younger people today. It's all about giving back. If he was even on his lowest times willing to put up and work hard to make sure they have money to give back, that's what we need to instill, continue to instill in our young people today. He set aside that for people of color that would need help with school. What he did was worked as a janitor at, guess where? The Beloit Public Library. It was the Beloit Library. So coincidence that all of this is coming full circle. Here we're speaking about this tonight. Here's where he lasted. He worked there 30 plus years at the Beloit Library as a janitor. This story of perseverance lives through academic programs and physical spaces at Beloit College. There's resident scholars programs. They're even considering naming some rooms in the new powerhouse. There's a conference room named after Grace Housley in South College on Beloit College campus. Their story is definitely a story of perseverance. Then as far, again, I talked about neighborhoods and the restructuring and how they tried to corral people to be just almost segregated to one portion of the city. There was only one school that it was 95% African American, and that school was Strong School. Strong School was located where Rock County Christian is located now, right across from Horace White Park. So again, remember I was talking about Turtle Creek, if any of you are familiar with that. That area, Keep Street, all in that area is where a majority of African American families lived. So the school that they could only go to was Strong School. But they weren't sought after like at other schools. They were put in a portable trailer type of deal outside of the school, which was seen as a premeditated tool to segregate black students from the white students. All of the educators were white, which led to students of color often being overlooked and ignored. The school closed in 1964. It's no longer there. Another facet of education, you might see a familiar face in the room. Barbara Hickman, she was the first African-American principal for the School District of Beloit in 1975. Prior to that, she was the first African-American female to graduate from UW-Stevens Point. Now, rewind from 1975 to 1971, a star was born, her daughter, Linda Fair. So again, got to put my mom in it, sorry guys. She's been with the district still. Her only employer ever in her life is the School District of Beloit. I've been through 1,000 jobs, but she's, that's her only employer. She still works for them. She's retired 3 times, and she's approaching 60 years with the School District of Beloit. She has served in every building in the school district in some capacity, from Title I director to principal, administrator, mentor. She's had her foot in every building. There's one school in Beloit that's paid homage to a lot of African Americans here in our community, and that's the newest intermediate school, Fruzen Intermediate School, located on Milwaukee Road. In that building, there is the Grace Owsley Library, there's the Jim Caldwell Gymnasium, and the Barbara Hickman Fine Arts Center. As stated earlier, the foundation for African Americans has always been the church. When we didn't know anything else or what else to do, we knew to fall down on our knees and pray and get to church. That was our saving grace. That's what led us through all these years. That's what has helped us persevere, and that's what continues to be one of the greatest things about us is the Black church. Churches served as a religious and social center. Especially think about all the people that transported north from Houston, Pontotoc, some of those cities. They didn't really know much about the area, so their hangout was the church. They had Bible meetings, you had choir rehearsals. It was just their social gathering place. They relied heavily on their religious beliefs. It stood as a refuge, as a safe haven. They were firm believers in the power of prayer and God, which has gotten us through a lot. Throughout time, the Black church stood as a stronghold of the Black community, fighting for equality and economic self-sufficiency. Now, as you know, back in the days, they tried to strip that even away from us. They didn't want us to sing the Negro spirituals. They didn't want us to do any of those things. And that's as slaves, that's when they began to come up with beats and drums and different things to still get their message across so that no one would understand what they were saying, but they knew, even if it was just humming. And that's how you look. I know the Lord, he heard my cry. If you're familiar with that Negro spiritual, that's one of the things that's what they were saying. I know the Lord, he heard my cry. If nothing else, he's going to make a way for us. He's going to bring us out of here. I know the Lord, he heard my cry. Faith has kept us going. Faith will continue to keep us going. The oldest Black church in Beloit is Bethel AME. Bethel AME is over 135 years old. The founder of the Methodist Church was Richard Allen. Following the Methodist Church was the Baptist faith. The Baptist faith formed Emmanuel Baptist Church, April 17th, 1917, as to meet the spiritual needs of the Great Migration. Because now you have all these people here, we can't all be in one denomination, we can't all be in one church, so they began to spread off and break off and venture off and create their own type of church. So later, after a few months after Emmanuel, came New Zion Baptist Church. And both of these churches just celebrated their 100th year anniversary about a year ago. They are still pillars in our community. Their pastors, the Dr. Reverend Floyd Prue Jr., may he rest in peace, they led their congregation to continue to have a strong hold on their faith. Reverend U.S. Pride from New Zion Baptist Church. There's U.S. Pride Park on Shore Drive named after him. Reverend D.W. Johnson, who was instrumental as well with the Edgewater YMCA and the Fairbanks Flats, and he was helping J.D. Stevenson keep control of the migrants that came up from the South. So it's really been that teamwork approach with the Black church and the community. Even now, when all else fails, you turn to the Black church. When things aren't going right, your spirituality is what's leading and helping you along the way. I can just keep remembering as I'm speaking is another Negro spiritual that says, if it hadn't been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? This is what kept our people going. This is why I'm here to talk to you tonight, because I know someone believed and prayed for me and had that faith. Employment opportunities. Of course, the big houses were Fairbanks, Morris, Beloit Iron Works, the Foundry. The people that came up from the South, they thought they were in heaven, but they were still faced with some of the segregation. They still were getting overlooked for positions within the company. They still were getting overlooked to become superintendents, foremen, and all those things. All they wanted was their labor, but at the time, that's what they needed, and they would bring back, thank you, they would bring back bring back their families. If they weren't bringing their families back, they were sending money home, sending money south, preparing. Here, when they were here, you had tons of family members staying under one roof, just so that we could, till we make it, till we get on our own feet, they stayed under one roof. You had grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings, everyone, because that's all about family. They were reaching back and taking care of each other. Some employment opportunities that we had, most of the Black males worked at Fairbanks or Beloit Iron Works. Beloit Iron Works changed from Beloit Iron Works to the corporation, Beloit Corporation. Black females could work as maids or prostitutes. It's a reality. They were doing what they had to do, but that was something that they did. The city of Beloit didn't hire any Blacks at all, and there were no retail or office jobs available. A lot of times the dad or the husband will work the foundry 12, 14 hours a day, come home to a meal, and all the mom did was take care of the house, get the food together, take care of the kids, make sure they get there. And that's why they kept instilling in them education, 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 get your education. And that's, that was their ticket. They figured if you get your education, this will be your ticket out of here. You saw your dad coming in with, the smut and all of that from the foundry all over them. You saw later in life that some people got cancer based off of inhaling all of those chemicals from that, but they did what they had to do. They did that to satisfy their family needs. They had to do what they had to do. We have been a people of hard work and dedication for a lifetime. That's what we do. You do what you got to do to make it for your family. Healthcare. Until 1928, there were 3 Beloit hospitals. Now we only have the one Beloit Memorial Hospital. Beloit, Blacks were able to get wards or semi-private rooms. 1929, Beloit Municipal Hospital, which was located over on Olympian Boulevard, known as Hospital Hill for the sledders in the place. They were one of the, opened a segregated hospital, and no Blacks could have wards there at all. There was a doctor by the name of Dr. Evans, and he would see patients only on Sundays. So if you were sick or needed to be seen, you had to wait till Sunday. Dr. William Marshall was the first Black doctor in the city. And Alta Gordon was the first Black nurse at Beloit Municipal Hospital, at the old hospital. Then you fast forward to the 90s, and we had Dr. Cheryl Peterson become the first female doctor. She worked for Beloit Health System in the early 90s, and she was also the first Beloit doctor to do the Norplant contraception implant. Along with some of the struggles with trying to satisfy and fill the need of recreation, families started turning to drugs, alcohol, anything to just kind of keep going. And it became an epidemic, definitely in the 80s, with crack taking over the scene. And Mrs. Mardella Shipp, she began what's called Beloit Inner City Council. It was in 1984. It was a substance abuse center for those families who needed to come in and have counseling, receive some education about it, and just to help. It was called Beloit Inner City, and it helped reach out to others. And it was like a sliding fee scale, no real money if you had insurance, but she was just there to work with our families so they would know they had a place to go for refuge or to get the help they needed. Beloit Black History First. We have tons of Black History First that we could mention. One I'm going to share too, this wasn't planned, ladies and gentlemen, but Walter Knight, who's in our room as well, he was the first city councilor in 1976, the first African-American city council member elected in 1976. And besides that, he also ran the union at Fairbanks Moores for over 25 years. Then he was the lone executive director of what's called Rock County OIC, Opportunities Industrialization Center, which was an on-the-job training center which helped with education, GED, a trade, construction, all of those things. Now, fast forward to 2019, 2 or 3 days ago, they just dedicated the Portland Avenue Bridge, Highway 213, in honor and remembrance, in honor of Mr. Walter Knight. It's now called the Walter Knight Memorial Bridge. So I believe in giving people credit where credit is due. Stand up, Mr. Knight. As some of the older people say, give me my flowers while I can yet smell them and see them. So we're giving you your kudos. But again, he paved the way for so many of us to be able to do what we're doing. And he was strictly a politician, kept a game face on all the time. As you notice, he still has one on. And he's shy and very humble, so we appreciate you. Then there was Dr. Rosa Smith, superintendent of schools. She was the first African-American superintendent for the school district of Beloit. Clarence Bolton was our first mail carrier, and his wife, Carolyn Bolton, was the first counselor for the school district of Beloit. There's Diane Henry. She was the first city clerk back in the 70s when they finally started to hire blacks. She was hired as the city clerk. Otha Williams, school psychologist, still works for the school district of Beloit. Some of you may just know him from Otha's Ribs. That's his part-time job. His real profession is school psychologist. And Mr. Bob Gilliam, the fire chief, he was the first African-American fire chief for the city of Beloit. And Edie Caldwell, the first female police officer, she was hired in 1977. And then there's Johnny Watts. He was a basketball player and the first one to play, first African-American to play in the state tournament. Tons of other people have paved the way and done many things. And it's all, you know, very impressive. And at the time when they were doing these things, they weren't doing it so that I could stand here in 2019 and shout their names out. They did it because it was in their heart. It was in their mind. It was embedded into them to reach out, do what you got to do, take care of your family, and hope leave a legacy for some others to follow. Now, we must never forget, sometimes it is impossible to know where you are headed without reflecting on where you came from. Understanding your heritage, your roots, and your ancestry is an important part of carving out your future. And nevertheless, I couldn't say it louder, I'm from Beloit and couldn't be prouder. Thank you. Now, if we have any questions, comments, cares, concerns. Yes, Teresa?
Can you just share your interest in this topic? Because I'm aware that you do this every year during Black History Month, but I've always been amazed at here and how you pull together together this info?
Yeah, some people say, are you a history buff? Most recently, I became into that. I think the older you get, you find your interests lead you a different path. And when Black History Month came, 2017, I think it was, or 2018, I'm getting older, I'm losing track on that. So I just thought, first of all, we don't teach this type of stuff in a school, in a classroom. You're not gonna find this in a book that you're gonna go home and do a report on. Different schools have different approaches for Black History Month, and a lot of our young people have no idea. They think life is grand. I got an iPhone, I got an iPad, I got the PlayStation. This just all came. I didn't have to do anything for it. So I just think that they need to know and reflect on where we've been, and it generated a lot of interest. So I said, each day I'm gonna share a fact. As I mentioned before, I was, born and raised here my entire life. So I've seen the city transition from back in the 70s to now. I know what I went through. I've sat around, listened to my mom talk, listened to others. I've been dragged to meetings my whole life, sitting in the back of her room, listening, finding out about issues that they were trying to fight, from the Black Teacher Caucus to the NAACP to the Greater Beloit Minority Coalition to the OIC Auxiliary. So I'm there just taking in everything, but who knew that I would retain it? I did, retain it, and it became an interest in me. So I said a couple of years ago, each day, I want to share something about Beloit, because you hear so often Harriet Tubman, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You might hear Frederick Douglass. You might hear Sojourner Truth, Rosa Parks. You hear the same five over and over and over again, but there's gems in your own backyard that you can reflect on and know that they've done great things, and the ways they paved for you to be able to do some of the things you do. We have pre-collegiate programs at Beloit College now, Help Yourself. We have students going there. The Black students, different things are going on, but there were people who fought for those rights, and I don't think our students knew that, or the young people knew that. So I said, I'm just gonna toss it out each day. I'm gonna give a fact. So I started reading, researching, interviewing people, talking to people. And then it became just like, you don't even want to sleep, because you just start reading and you just get thirsty for more knowledge and information. And you're like, ooh, ooh, ooh. So it just really became like a bubble. So I did it for that first year. And I was like, I don't know if I could find anything else. I did 28 whole days with a lot of information one year, and came back the next year with it, and then to hear the feedback and the positive feedback from our community members from all walks of life, from all colors, and they're sharing it, and they're like, thank you for this information, because they never knew, because where would you find out about it? We don't have encyclopedias anymore. You can't go, unless you maybe Google some stuff. So they didn't know where it was, and what to do about it. So I just thought that, each time, that'll be my giving back to the community. I'm gonna, share with you and hope that you, pass the torch on, and maybe someone keeps this legacy going. Been approached to write books, which has always been one of my bucket list items, different things of that nature. So I'm hoping that I can just continue to reach this, inspire some, because if we don't teach each other, who else will? We have to share the information. So again, and it became, just that passion. So it just kind of took off like that. And again, like I said, you just get thirsty for more knowledge, and then you just read, and then you cry some, you laugh some, you smile some, but it's our history, and we cannot sweep it under a rug. It needs to be told. Yes.
So first, thank you for your commitment to do all the research, because I know it's quite a commitment. But for the community at large, what would you say, or how would you ask for the community at large to help spread this type of message and get this information out to the broader community?
And her question was, how can we get this information out to the broader community? I would say, as far as like if you're a teacher or if you're involved in different community groups, invite speakers. Read, hold book club meetings, find a topic that you want to research and get more in depth on it. Bring in people. Like I said, we have 2 living icons in our presence right now that would be more than glad to come talk someday, So just kind of reach back and do that, and don't be afraid to ask. again, because it takes, teamwork to make the dream work. We all got to put our heads together. My way might not be the right way. Maybe someone else has another idea, but the more we get the information out, maybe it starts with the daily news putting in something. Maybe, again, like I said, it starts with the after-school program type of deal, a club, whatever. We just got to come together on it and see ways that we can utilize this information.
So you had the names of two of the towns in Georgia?
In Mississippi.
And I know you said, and I know this from other reading I've done, that there were 4 towns.
Pontotoc, Mississippi. These all are cities in the northern part of Mississippi, and they used to call Beloit Mississippi North because the city was heavily populated. Even like right now, there's so much population that derived from the south. Houston, Mississippi, Pontotoc, Mississippi, New Albany, Mississippi, and West Point. All in Mississippi. Northern part of Mississippi. And again, that, like I said, a lot of times they did a lot of carpooling. It wasn't even cars, but like walking in groups because they were afraid to be alone by themselves. Because what they noticed, they said, although we're north and although there's no slavery here, there's still that racial tension in the area. So they always wanted to be safe and wanted to be secure. That's when they worked together. If anything I could take, what I found out is it was more togetherness to me back then. It wasn't so divided, even though we were already divided in the town. You had your pockets here on the east side of town. You had your pockets on the west side of town. They had the 2 school districts, they were called, like Beloit Public Schools 1, which was east side of the river, and Beloit Public Schools 2, which was west side of the river. And the superintendent of the school was the president of the school board, and their wives were the assistant. But like I said, there's tons of stories. There's a lot more that I could elaborate it on. We could talk about like social and recreation clubs. Again, blacks weren't allowed in different areas, like the Alumni House, which is this downtown. It was called the Pop House back in the day, and blacks were not allowed to do that. So that's when they formed their own organizations, their own social groups, such as the Women's Culture Club, the Quest Club. They formed their own communications and ways to dance and hang out and create their own. Bell's Bar off of Maple, the Socialite Club, Leon Davidson Square, and then other pastimes such as bowling. They helped implement the first black bowling league, it was called the Saturday Night Major League, and they bowled in South Beloit, Illinois. So they made their own way. Sometimes, I don't know if you guys watched the award show the other night, the BET Awards. Tyler Perry said something very, very dynamic and profound. He said, I stopped wanting to sit at the table and built my own. And that's exactly what African Americans did. I can't join you at your table, I'll build my own. And that's what he did with Tyler Perry Studios. And, that was just very profound to me and inspiring. And somehow along, I just think that our younger people need to have that same energy. So we just got to kind of beat it in here. If I found out if it's on the screen, they'll probably read it or watch it. Anything that's on, with technology nowadays. But that was just so profound to me that he said that.
So I noticed in your research that some things kind of changed mid-60s. Would you say that has to do with the national civil rights movement?
Definitely, I would say definitely it did. That's because at this time now it's a national, it's becoming national. The laws are changing all the way around. There were places still like Milwaukee who tried to not abide by the national laws, and then there was a Val Phillips from Milwaukee who fought hard for rights for the community of Madison. Then there's people in Madison like Velma Bell Hamilton, different ones. Every city, I like to say, in this area had their 1 or 2 activists, 1 or 2 leaders that really tried to press the issue of equal rights for all. And then there's like over by Lake Geneva, the town of Ivanhoe, I think it is. It's a black community. Our kids don't know anything about that. It was founded by blacks. owned by blacks and everything, just a few minutes away from here, over outside of Lake Geneva. But that's not in a book, you know, so you almost got to just preach that word. That would be a great place for a field trip, you know what I mean? So this can really grow. We can make it a club type of deal. Those who are really interested, families, parents, this could be something that we could really grow and prosper till you get, you know, getting to know your history and knowing what's going on. Reverend Pride, they marched with Dr. King. You know, back in the 60s, that the march, the Selma March, he was part of that, Reverend U.S. Pride was. Again, very instrumental. And one other thing, like I said, the church has always been our foundation, and they weren't divided. We had the Beloit Community Ministers Fellowship. We had people partnering up and working together. And if anything, that's getting a little divided. Everybody's just interested in saving themselves when we need to save ourselves. Any other questions, comments, cares, concerns? Thank you.